Maeve, I need a break, Cersei gasped between ragged breaths. Maeve, who had been pulling her along by the arm, stopped abruptly. Cersei stumbled sideways to avoid colliding when Maeve released her grip. Cole, struggling to keep pace, dropped to one knee, panting hard. Maeve pointed upward to a large tree. Let's take cover here. Weighed down by exhaustion, Cersei needed Maeve to help hoist her up the trunk. Cole barely managed to scramble onto the lowest branch. It took several arduous minutes of strain before they were high enough to remain hidden. Satisfied, Maeve leaned back against the tree trunk, legs dangling in the air. Silence settled over them. After a short break to catch their breath and nibble on strips of dried meat, Cole wove a protective barrier around them, while Maeve cycled mana to replenish her reserves. Cersei, meanwhile, knew what she had to do, but couldn't bring herself to act. Instead, she turned hesitantly toward Cole and Maeve. "Do you think Fane made it?" she asked quietly. Maeve opened one eye, just one, but the anger blazing in it like a hot coal made Cersei wince. Cole shuffled over and sat between Maeve and Cersei, breaking direct eye contact. "Cersei, can you use true sense yet?" Cole's voice was soft, almost gentle, but he wouldn't meet her gaze. Damn it. Everything they'd worked for, the entire war effort in Eleanor, was at risk because she had wanted to dip her toes in the water. If Cole hadn't followed, if he'd stayed to maintain the barrier like he was supposed to, she wouldn't have been distracted. She would have spotted the elves sooner, sneaked back to camp, and once inside the barrier, they would have lost her. They would have. But no, she was the one who left first. She couldn't blame him to save herself. That wasn't the Alacrian way. Focus, Cersei. She closed her eyes and ignited her emblem. For a moment, as her consciousness slipped from her body, she was tempted to use the brief time in this form to search for Fane. If only she could see that he was still alive. Snap out of it, Cersei. Focus on the mission. Pushing through the suffocating fog with true sense, she locked onto multiple elements this time. In the distance, a cloud of rich ambient mana particles glowed faintly. We're almost there. Though Cersei had held true sense active for only moments, she couldn't maintain it any longer. She released the spell and exhaled deeply. Slowly opening her eyes, she found Cole and Maeve, both watching her closely. Despite the weight of guilt and exhaustion pressing down on her, she managed a small, tired smile. We're almost there, just a couple more days. They took turns sleeping in 1-hour shifts before quietly slipping from the tree and pressing onward. Cersei found herself hoping another sentry might succeed in charting a safe path. She wasn't a war hero, not battle-hardened like the others who had trained for years to fight as a team, to protect one another, and to kill their enemies. Barely graduated before being thrust into this mission, she had been packing her things only weeks ago, ready to return home to her blood. Lost in thought, she stumbled over a tree root and pitched forward. Maeve's quick hand caught her arm, preventing her from falling flat on her face. Unable to speak, Cersei simply nodded her thanks. But Maeve's expression was cold. Since joining the team, Maeve had mothered her, yet now she seemed to treat Cersei like a failed pupil. Cersei was certain Maeve would soon shake her head, voice heavy with disappointment, urging her to make better choices in the future. Despite the care Maeve had shown, Cersei now found herself desperate to earn her approval, and the sting of that disappointment cut deep. She's not your blood, Cersei, she told herself firmly. Who gives a shit if she's disappointed, as long as the mission succeeds? You have to survive. You have to survive for your brother. Cersei repeated those words in her mind, like a mantra. The great Vritra would save her brother and bless him with magic if she succeeded. She'd kill 10,000 elves if she had to, just to give her brother that chance. She'd face the elven she-demon alone to prove to Vritra that the Millview blood was worth it. Her thoughts were shattered by the sudden sensation of two figures entering the range of her perception. She raised an arm, extending 2 fingers to signal Maeve and Cole to stop. They understood immediately, and without hesitation, they began climbing the nearest tree. Unlike Cole and Maeve, who could strengthen their bodies with magic, Cersei struggled just to reach the lowest branch. In her haste, her foot slipped on a moss-covered root, and she pitched headfirst into the trunk. The dull thud echoed like an explosion through the quiet forest. Her heart froze, and her stomach dropped. She barely registered the throbbing pain on her forehead as she held her breath, waiting for any sign of danger. A moment later, she noticed the dull pressure in her ears and the slight blur around her. Cole had already conjured a barrier. Great Vritra, that was close, she thought, silently making a mental note to thank him. Here, Maeve called, reaching down to help her up. Cersei quickly grasped Maeve's outstretched hand and, with her help, hauled herself onto the branch. Her heart, which moments ago had seemed frozen in place, now pounded violently against her ribcage. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but there was no time to steady herself. Maeve had already climbed several feet higher. Cersei followed carefully, tracing the same handholds and footholds, while Cole brought up the rear. The three moved with extreme caution as they traversed the towering tree. Though shielded by Cole's barrier, even the sound of falling leaves or snapping twigs could betray their position. Cersei's arms ached and her legs trembled, partly from exhaustion, partly from fear. She longed for her emblem to grant some physical enhancement, but knew such hope was futile now. Finally, they paused. The branches this high were too slender to support all three at once. Each settled on their own limb, hugging the trunk to ease the strain on their perch. Cole began to strengthen his barrier, but stopped when Cersei gave the signal. "I'll tell you when they're close enough," she whispered. They needed the barrier at full strength if the enemy came near, but she knew Cole was too exhausted to hold it long. As the two presences drew closer, Cersei narrowed the focus of her crest until she could faintly hear the elves speaking. "We should head back, Albold. We've already strayed far enough from our survey route," one voice warned. "Just a second," the second voice, Albold, replied dismissively. "We're miles away from the last sighting," the first insisted. "No way that a Lacrian could have made it this far out. You probably just heard a hare or something." "What does he mean by the last sighting?" Cersei wondered. "It wasn't really a sound," Albold said as he continued toward the tree where they hid. "It was more like an inkling." "I swear, if you weren't a chaffer, I'd have left already," the first grumbled. "3 soldiers dead in a ditch, and you want to wander around just the 2 of us? Maybe we should signal for General Aya." "No need to bother the general," Albold said dryly. "It's just one damned Alacrian. How the hell did they manage to make it this far north?" "Fane is alive," Cersei thought, feeling a flicker of relief despite herself. He was a pain in the ass, but she certainly felt safer when he was around. Prying herself away from the reach of her crest's perceptions, Cersei turned to Cole and gave a nod. He nodded back, tightening his veiling barrier to enclose just the 3 of them. Reducing its area of effect strengthened his magic, allowing him to add 2 more layers of shielding. Cersei ignited her crest once again, focusing all her magic on the 2 approaching elves. They were now less than 20 feet away. Cole and Maeve remained as still as the tree they perched upon. Holding up both hands, Cersei silently mouthed 10 feet to her teammates. The sharp snap of a nearby twig made her stiffen. Cole and Maeve's eyes were locked intently on the ground below. Then they saw them, 2 elves. One had long hair tied tightly behind his neck. The other's hair was cropped short, and his ears were slightly longer than his companions. Unlike the aimless gaze of the long-haired elf, the short-haired one kept his head down as he walked. He slowed his pace, still focused on the ground. "Please, just keep walking, please." Suddenly, the elf's head jerked to the left. His gaze fixed on the base of the tree, on the moss-covered root, the very moss Cersei had slipped on. The fear she had been suppressing bubbled up in her chest, threatening to consume her. "Please." The short-haired elf halted, lifting his head until Cersei could make out his face. His eyes, 2 gray orbs, seemed to be staring straight at her. Cersei ran. It felt as though her entire purpose, her very function, had been reduced to this, running near blind through the cursed forest. She sprinted in whatever direction her magic guided her. Without it, she was blind. Even if there had been a moon, its pale rays would never have pierced the dense canopy and the fog that loomed above. Low-hanging branches scraped her cheeks and arms, thorny shrubs tore at her clothes. Compared to the fire in her lungs and the knives stabbing into every muscle, the pain was insignificant. But if she fell, all would be lost. Every so often, flashes of green light from Maeve's magic lit up the trees, casting eerie, shifting shadows across the forest floor. Maeve, Cole, please make it out safely. She kept running until the bursts of magical battle dwindled into faint glimmers behind her. Skidding to a stop, she ducked behind a thick shrub, pressing a trembling hand over her mouth to smother her ragged gasps. Fear clawed at her chest, paranoia and doubt rising like a tide, threatening to drown her resolve. "You're okay, Circe. You're doing great," she told herself, swiping at the steady stream of tears that wouldn't stop flowing. "You have to survive. For your brother. For Seth." After finally catching her breath and calming her nerves, Circe ignited her crest. At once, she sensed the nearest three-point array. It was farther away than she had hoped. Unable to even curse aloud, she ground her teeth in frustration. With the distance between the arrays, simple mana wouldn't be enough. It had to be strong. Dropping to her knees, she dug a small hole in the soft earth with her bare hands. Then she bit down hard on her thumb until blood welled up, letting the crimson drops fall into the pit while she infused them with mana from her crest. She had discovered this by accident. Her blood acted as a medium, amplifying the array's effects. Perhaps, if she survived long enough to return to Alakria, she might one day unravel why, and begin the evolution of her crest into an emblem. When the last trace of mana-infused blood seeped into the soil, she covered the hole and moved to a nearby tree. Knife in hand, she carved a small opening beneath a low branch. Lifting her still-bleeding thumb toward it, a sharp snap split the silence behind her. Circe spun, knife raised in both hands, crest igniting once more as her senses expanded in a 20-yard radius. Only a forest creature. She exhaled shakily, lowering the blade. Frustration swelled at her own jumpiness. Her back pressed against the rough bark. She trembled, tears pricking her eyes. But she clenched her fists, ground her teeth, and forced the fear down into a dark, hidden corner of her mind. Time enough to die when the job's done, soldier. Despite her best efforts, despite knowing the noise had only been caused by an animal, Circe couldn't focus. Every instinct screamed at her to check behind, over and over again. If someone were here, they would have killed me already, she growled inwardly. It wasn't much comfort, but it was true. She was a sentry, valuable, respected, but compared to strikers like Fane, casters like Maeve, and shields like Cole, she was nearly defenseless. The hairs on the back of her neck stood rigid, but with hands trembling, she forced herself to turn back to her task. One point done, then the second. At last, she moved to the final tree, completing the three-point array. The use of blood as a medium had always taken its toll, but she hadn't anticipated just how weak she would feel when the final mark was finished. Sweat dripped down her face despite the sharp winter air, and her knees nearly buckled beneath her. Got to move, almost there. Unable to hide the faint trail of mana she left behind, Circe pushed herself forward. Thankfully, she wouldn't need to use her blood again, as long as she kept the next imprint close enough. A half jog was all her body allowed. The training drills came back to her. Those grueling marathons where they had been forced to alternate between running and using their power until half the class collapsed. She had hated those days with every fiber of her being, but now she finally understood. Without that conditioning, she would already be dead. Have the others preceded me into the afterlife? She wondered. Cole would have fallen first. Circe knew that much. It was the way of shields. Protection of the combat group was paramount, even to the very end. After Cole, Maeve would follow soon after. Casters were aggressive, their entire focus bent toward offensive magic, but without her shield to guard her, Maeve would become little more than target practice for 11 archers. Fane, though, he was different. A striker, and one who bore an emblem. If any of them could survive blind and alone in the elves' forest of death, it would be him. For a while, at least. Her boot caught on a knobby tree root, and she pitched forward into the dirt. Well, this is as good a place as any. Forcing herself onto her knees, Circe ignited her crest and went to work once more. Mana oozed painfully from her fingertips into the first point of the array. Her reserves were nearly gone. She could feel it. She wouldn't have the energy to complete many more arrays, yet she had no way of knowing how far the elven village still lay. Rest had been impossible since the elf Albold had discovered them. She hadn't been able to risk true sight since. "Blood honor me," she whispered, performing the mental equivalent of squeezing a lemon, wringing out the last drops of strength within her as she forced the second point of the array into being. "Light guide me." Dragging herself to a thin, white-barked tree, she pressed her trembling hand to it and began the third point. "Vritra, protect me." It was as Circe completed the third point of the array that she heard it. Footsteps hammering bullishly through the undergrowth, drawing nearer with each passing second. Moments later, a shadowy form flew over her, vaguely human-shaped, though she couldn't tell whether it was elf or not. Whoever it was, they hit the ground running. They must not have seen me. The thought flickered weakly through her mind, until the heavy steps faltered. Slowly, torturously, Circe turned her head toward the figure. The fog blurred the person's features, so she ignited her crest. Pain lanced through her body as her senses expanded, and then recognition struck. Fane. "You look like shit," she rasped as the blood-covered striker circled back and approached her. Dropping to his knees, Fane leaned into her, wrapping his arms around her and pulling her upright into a rough, desperate embrace. "What are you—" "Quiet, Circe, there's no time. Can you run?" he asked, already dragging her to her feet. His eyes clung to her, reluctant to look away, but his instincts forced him to turn, scanning the fallen tree she had failed to clear. "I think so," she breathed. Fane ignited his emblem. His entire body flared with light, and gusts of wind roared to life around him, swirling into a violent whirlwind that lifted him from the ground. In his hand, a long spear materialized, its sharpened point spinning like a drill and whipping the air into a cutting gale. "Then run! I'll hold him off." Without hesitation, Circe turned and ran. She didn't know who Fane was referring to, but the fact that he had unleashed his emblem at full power told her enough. Whoever it was, they were dangerous. It wasn't long before the sounds of battle thundered behind her. The earth trembled, trees shuddered as if mourning their kin torn apart in the clash. More than once, the gales surging from behind nearly knocked her off her feet, but she resisted the urge to look back. Fane was doing his job. She had to do hers. Art drove the pommel of his practice sword into his opponent's wrist, sending the young man's longsword clattering to the ground at his feet. "Your movements are too stiff," Art said firmly. "You need to loosen your shoulders and wrists until the last moments of your swing. If you can't do that, the sword you're using is too heavy for you." The young soldier shook his armored hand with a grimace. "Thank you for the advice." Next. By now, several soldiers, mostly those relieved from duty for rest, had lined up, waiting their turn to spar with him. A handful of merchants and tradesmen, not occupied with evacuation efforts, had gathered as well, watching with lively chatter as Art dismantled each opponent. So far, he had exchanged only 2 or 3 moves with each soldier before landing what would have been a killing blow, then offered sharp but constructive advice on their technique. As a new soldier stepped into the stone ring Art had conjured, Sylvie's voice echoed in his mind. "I thought you said you were going to try and get some rest before setting out." He glanced up to see her descending the nearby stairs, Gavik and Callum flanking her. "I couldn't fall asleep," he replied, "so I figured I'd warm up my body and train a few soldiers while I'm at it. How was your trip to the top of the wall? Is Ellie doing okay?" Sylvie grinned as she approached him. "Ellie is adjusting well. When I went to check on her, She was busy practicing her aim from the wall's edge with a few other soldiers. One of them looked about her age, too. Art's gaze lifted toward the towering structure, noting the flurry of movement along its length. That's good. Gavik stepped closer to the stone ring. Captain Albanth and his troops are tearing down most of the support beams for the underground passages. Captain Jesmia is moving her people around the wall's ends, but... The burly adventurer hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. Is it really necessary for you and Lady Sylvie to go alone? No offense to you or Callum, Art said with a conciliatory smile. But are you truly confident you can keep up with us, fighting alongside a lance, and... He caught himself before saying the word dragon. And Sylvie? I don't want to worry about accidentally killing you. Gavik glanced back at the curly-haired conjurer standing behind him. Both mages wore equally stoic expressions as they turned their attention back to Art. Yes, Gavik replied firmly. Listen, Art said, his tone even but dismissive. I know Commander Virian sent you here to assist me in the wall's defense, but I doubt he meant for you to go into battle by my side. Just stay here. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed them. Even from where he stood, Art could hear the faint grind of Gavik's teeth, but the adventurer said nothing. Instead, he turned sharply on his heel and led Callum away, weaving through a throng of workers filing past, their destination no doubt the underground passages. We could have used their help, Sylvie remarked, her eyes following the two men until they disappeared into the crowd. And they seemed really determined to go with us. Art motioned for the waiting soldier on the far side of the ring to step forward, then shifted smoothly into a ready stance. Gavik has a daughter about my age, or younger, if the picture in that pendant was recent, he explained to Sylvie, deflecting a wild thrust from his opponent with a swift parry. I saw him sneak in a kiss after the meeting. Sylvie let out a surprised, half-stifled laugh from behind Art, and here I was, thinking how cold my bond has been to these poor soldiers. It seems you're getting better at keeping your thoughts from leaking into mine. A man's got to be able to keep a few secrets, Art replied with a faint smile, his saber pressing against his opponent's nape. His voice turned instructive as he addressed the soldier before him. If I'm not wrong, you've suffered a significant injury on your right side in the past, which is why you favor it so heavily. You fall for every feint to the right, leaving your left side wide open. Next. Mind if I have a go? A familiar voice called from his left. Both Art and Sylvie turned toward the sound, and a flood of elation rushed through their bond as Sylvie darted forward. Tessia! She cried, throwing her arms around the elven princess. Art's smile deepened at the sight. Tessia hadn't changed much since their last meeting. Her gunmetal gray hair clung dark and damp with lingering moisture, and her turquoise eyes glimmered with a light all their own. Yet there was something different. An edge, a weight in her stance that spoke of hard-won experience. He could see it instantly. Time spent in the dungeons had shaped her, honing her into a soldier with quiet strength. The princess blinked in surprise, her gaze shifting from Art to the child clinging tightly around her waist. Her eyes lingered on the small horns jutting from the girl's head, and realization dawned. Sylvie? No more sparring for today, Art called out, his voice carrying across the ring. A chorus of groans and sighs rippled through the gathered soldiers and adventurers as they reluctantly sheathed their weapons and dispersed. A few, however, couldn't resist casting jealous glances at Tessia as they passed. For a while, Art remained silent, content to listen as Tessia and Sylvie exchanged words. His bond had always held a special fondness for the princess, once even calling her Mama in her youth. He could tell Tessia was still struggling to reconcile the image of the small fox she used to cradle like a pet with the young woman now standing before her. Tessia and her party had arrived at the wall just an hour earlier, pulled from the beast glades ahead of the advancing horde. They had been directed to the inn to wash and rest for the next leg of their journey, but, much like Art himself, the princess hadn't been able to sleep. Instead, she had wandered through the market district, inevitably leading her straight to him. As they walked, Art following a few paces behind, Tessia glanced back over her shoulder, a suspicious glint in her turquoise eyes. "What's so funny?" "Huh?" Art blinked, pressing his fingers unconsciously to his lips. "Oh, I didn't even realize I was smiling. I guess Sylvie's emotions are influencing mine." Tessia arched a brow, her lips curling into a sly grin. "You know, if I chose to take that the wrong way, it almost sounds like you're saying you're not happy to see me." "Unlike Arthur, I will wholeheartedly admit that I'm happy to see you," Sylvie interjected with a bright smile, before her tone softened, a shadow of unease flickering across her mind. "I just wish it was under better conditions." "I agree, but I'm glad I was able to see the two of you before I head back out. I can't get over how cute and pretty you look in this form," Tessia said warmly, her voice carrying a playful lilt meant to comfort Sylvie. The words had their intended effect. Sylvie practically glowed as she answered, "Back when we were in Epheotis, my grandmother told me that I would grow up to be a very pretty dragon." Art raised a brow, unable to hold back his interjection. "I'm not sure most people would describe a pitch-black, 20-foot dragon with gleaming yellow daggers for eyes as pretty." "Is this how you two always talk inside your heads?" Tessia asked, her turquoise eyes gleaming with amusement. "We'd been getting along fairly maturely until you showed up, Tessia," Sylvie replied with a smirk. "Your presence must be affecting Arthur." Art rolled his eyes. "And there's that snide little attitude I've missed so much." Sylvie only shrugged, her grin unbothered, and the three of them continued to wander aimlessly through the lower levels of the wall. When they reached the steep stairway leading up to the top of the wall, Tessia came to a stop. Stealing a quick glance at Art before turning to Sylvie, she asked softly, "Hey Sylvie, do you mind if I steal Arthur away from you for a bit?" If you're enjoying this series, please give the video a like. It really helps others discover it. And if you'd like to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. Want the next chapter? Comment "next chapter" below.